Okay, good afternoon. My name is C.C. Lin, and I will be talking about Sharpe Parity tweaking the edges, okay? And there is a disclaimer, okay? I'm long on U.S. developed and emerging market equity, including but not limited to the following: SPY, XLV, EFA, DXJ, IWO, PEJ, DFE, TBEFH. Okay, these will all be discussed, okay, in the presentation, and therefore, I may have a bias since I own them. I may have nice things to say about them, so that's something that you need to be aware of. Okay, with that, let's go. Okay. Obviously, we are here trying to make a few more bucks, okay? And obviously, high return is the objective, yet risk matters. So we don't want to say, oh, double the investment, then crash, lost 50%, go back to the original. What a waste of time and effort, okay? Momentum work, at least in the short term, there are a number of literature to say that the momentum actually work is an anomaly that has been investigated and has shown to be the case across many investment classes. The other thing is that valuation works. Okay, that is, if you can buy it cheap, then generally speaking, your longer-term return will be better than if you buy it high. Okay. And the other point I want to make is that diversification is only free lunch in financial market. It works best when components of the portfolio are negatively correlated, uncorrelated, or lowly correlated. Diversification reduces the risk, but does not guarantee high return. Okay?
What's lowly?
What
does it mean lowly correlated?
Lowly zero. You will see one example. Okay, low equal to 0.02.
Small number.
Small number, yeah, not one, okay? Obviously, what the Sharpe Parity is a framework related to assets allocation. The goal of asset allocation is quite simple: allocate more to assets that will perform well in the future, and allocate less or nothing to assets that will perform poorly in the future. That's all we need to know, okay? Now, the problem is that the future is unknown currently and is continuously changing. It cannot be optimized, okay? So all we can do is to test and validate the algorithm retroactively and on a go-forward basis, okay? In the last 12 months or so, something has emerged, okay, that has caught a lot of our attention. It's called Sharpe Parity, okay? And this is, the framework was developed by two researchers in UBS institution. And if you look at the source document, you will find that the first document is Stefan Neal and Ramin Nakisa, okay? Much better than risk parity, Sharpe Parity from the UBS Global Research. So they are the author of this article. So in my presentation, I'll refer them to as Neal and Nakisa, okay, which is I'll refer them as UBS researchers, okay. And what you can see is that through their historical work, they look at from December 2002 running through December 2013. They look at number of strategy. One is, for example, this one is called risk weight, is like that. The second one they mentioned is called Max Sharpe, and the curve is like that. And again, going to the source document number 7, you will find a YouTube video for explaining the Max Sharpe, which is otherwise known as the tangency portfolio, and Sharpe Parity, otherwise known as Sharpe weight, posted by Joe, the sector surfer, okay? And the presentation was made by Al, and there are these links, okay, that you can go and you can watch, okay? So if you say, I don't know anything about Sharpe, don't worry, the video is there, okay? And then the Sharpe weight, and we will here refer the Sharpe parity. This is the performance curve. And you can see that among all the strategies that were compared, Sharpe parity was a runaway winner in terms of the return. Now, one information that I added is that S&P total return from December 2002 to December 2013, it's plus 160%, or endpoint was 260% of the starting point. So the S&P is probably endpoint is somewhere around here. So this Sharpe parity, wow, it's a wonderful performance. We all be rich, okay, if we follow what the researchers suggest. You know that we actually have in the CME there is the folio tracking, okay. There's a basic algorithm by rule weight assets to achieve Sharpe ratio parity. So the first process is to calculate Sharpe parity weighting over the trading 63 days. Assets has a negative Sharpe ratio, receive 0 weight. L has a volatility control. The ETF used was Standard & Poor's 500, NASDAQ 100, emerging market, Russell 2000, developed market, EFA, okay. TLT, long-term treasury, IYR, the commercial real estate or REIT, and gold, okay. I'm going to skip some of that. Timing, there's no timing. Trading is monthly. Implementation for the CME group, we started the tracking since October of last year. And one thing I want to mention is that valuation, that's not part of the algorithm consideration. Now, ideally, we know that the valuation work. If you can buy cheap, so much better. But this is not part of the algorithm consideration. Now, the Sharpe parity caught my attention because a few months earlier, right, when we look at the fourth quarter tracking, we say that, wow, Sharpe parity 5.7%, Standard & Poor's 500 4.2. So few strategy outperformed S&P last year. So anything that outperformed, we say, wow, what a wonderful strategy. And then comes January, Sharpe parity produced 3.1% gain versus S&P loss of 3%. And I say, wow, is this sort of the holy grail that we have been looking for? Well, comes February, Sharpe parity suffered a loss of 3.5%, S&P gained 5.6%. So for that 1 month, it lost 9% of relative performance. And we will dig into a lot of detail into what's going on, okay? For March, it did better than S&P 500. Okay? Everybody still with me? Okay, so what actually happened was that some of the asset the Sharpe parity strategy was investing on was at the turning point, okay? And it turned from very good performance to very bad performance in a hurry. And this is amount to a mini crash. And we'll talk a lot more about that in the later part of the presentation. Okay, so if you look, okay, so back in January the 2nd, you have S&P weight of 9%, NASDAQ weight of 9%, emerging market North weight, Russell 2000 14%, TLT 22%, and real estate investment trust 46%. So all remember the Sharpe parity allocate the portfolio according to the Sharpe ratio. And the commercial real estate REIT had a very high Sharpe ratio at that time, and therefore it garnered a very large proportion of the weight. Okay, and I actually calculate a 13-week Sharpe ratio 0.89. Now, I will explain to you what that means. Okay, now obviously we all know that Sharpe ratio typically is done on an annualized basis. But I mean, this what I'm doing here is, you know, more of a short-term allocation, try to be more dynamic. Therefore, I calculate the ratio every week. Okay, and so I'm just taking the weekly return divided by weekly standard deviation. Okay, so a Sharpe this, you know, weekly Sharpe ratio 0.89. This is equate to about annualized ratio about 6. Okay, that's extraordinarily high. Okay, we'll talk more about that. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
What is the idea behind allocating weights with the Sharpe ratio? Why Sharpe ratio?
It is, that's what is called Sharpe Parity. You allocate the portfolio according to the Sharpe ratio versus some of the more classical allocation scheme. Okay, what you have is that they may say, okay, they have 12 asset class, and they pick up the top 3 and assign 1/3 to each of the top 3. That is sort of more classical asset allocation. But Sharpe Parity, what these guys are suggesting is that if you could allocate a lot to very high performing asset class, you could juice up your return quite a bit. And they have shown that, okay, to be the case here. Okay, so that's what the Sharpe Parity is all about. Yes?
So if you have a bigger universe of, say, S&P 500 stocks, how would this
This is,
like how do you assign the weights?
okay, so this, remember what these guys are doing is that they look at a asset class. Okay, so this is asset class allocation, not so much of a individual stock selection. And we will talk, as you will see, that what if we tweak some of these constituents and what will happen? Okay, and that's
the Sharpe ratio gives you the return, but the risk is behind. So you have to look at the ratio, not only the Sharpe, but the ratio of risk, return to risk.
yeah, and so
Your picture, if you go back to your picture, where you have the graph.
Yeah.
The upper graph, which obviously has high return, but it has much higher risk.
no, actually, if you look at here, from 300 down to 250, that's a drawdown of about 17%. That's much less than the S&P 500, which is the drawdown during the financial crisis was more like 50% or somewhere in that range. So this actually performed quite well. Okay, now just hold on. Okay, we will talk more about what did they do wrong and what are some of the counter evidence other people has come up with about their findings. Okay. And so in this case, the real estate investment trust has a very, very high weight because the short-term weekly Sharpe ratio was extraordinarily high. So in this case, in this period, it was running about 60% annualized return. Okay, and that is clearly not sustainable. We will look into that deeper later on. And then therefore it declined, and then it declined quite a bit. By February 27, it declined from 46% to 21%. The Treasury, was doing pretty good, and then come January 30th, it has a blowout week, wonderful performance, and suddenly the weight jumped up to 44%. The weekly Sharpe, meaning that is the weekly return divided by weekly standard deviation. So let's say that the weekly standard deviation is 1.6%, and you got a weekly Sharpe of 0.75. That means weekly return of 1.2%. So weekly return of 1.2%, that's like 60% annualized return. Okay, so that is very, very high. And then, due to sharp rise in interest rate following the rosy January employment report, Treasury shows sharp decline in allocation triggered by negative return from February the 2nd through the 19th and an increased 13-week standard deviation. And following that, U.S. equity came back after 1 week of absence. So here, you know, the U.S. equity was actually SPY have a weight of 0, QQQ 0, EM 0, IWM 0, and then 1 week later, the equity came back, and then the TLT suffer a sharp decline, and therefore sharp reduction in allocation. Okay, so what we are witnessing just in the last few months is that one of the danger of Sharpe parity is they perform very poorly at the market turning point. Okay, and one of the comments I mentioned is that historically the rotation strategy, even when combined, has failed in around 1 year in 3. In the case of momentum, the failure can be especially painful at market turning point. But for the patient, long-run investor who can weather such episode, the past success of these strategies may provide food for thought. This is from the Credit Suisse Global Investment Outlook 2015. That's on the source document number 6. Okay. So this turning point, okay, of very high performance strategy suddenly going down, and some of you may say, oh yeah, my hedged European equity was doing very well until last Friday, right? When Greece may have some problems, or wow, Chinese are doing something to limit the margin and whatever. Okay, so that is an issue, okay, that the Sharpe parity would have to face. Okay.
How does the weekly rebalancing performance compare with the monthly?
Okay, we actually I calculate every week. Okay, the exercise I'm going to show you is that the ratio is calculated every week, but rebalancing is done every 4 weeks, roughly corresponding to monthly. Okay, but you will also find is that when you use the weekly, the starting point make a lot of difference. Okay, especially when you only look at a very short, outcome period. Okay, and we'll talk about all of that. Okay. So I mentioned that we need to translate the weekly data into annualized equivalents, and all you know that the Sharpe ratio analyze every annual return minus risk-free return divided by the standard deviation annual return. Now, obviously, right now, risk-free return is approximately 0. In the era of zero interest rate policy, average annual return, for some of you that still remember statistic, average, now this does not take any statistic. Average annual return is average return times 52, okay? Now this one does require to know a bit about statistics. That is, standard deviation annual return is the standard deviation of the weekly return times the square root of 52, okay? And so going through that, so you got annualized Sharpe ratio is 7 is every weekly return divided by standard deviation weekly return times square root of 52, or the annualized return is 7.2 times the weekly Sharpe ratio. So when I say weekly Sharpe ratio 0.75, you should have a understanding that 0.75, that's 5.4 annualized Sharpe ratio. That's very, very high. You know, almost no one can achieve that. Okay. Now, the other thing that since Neil and Nakisa published the original article, somebody has come out and refute their findings. Okay, one of them is probably most noticeable is Wesley Gray. These are the guy in the what do they call it? They call themselves Alpha Architect. Okay, so that's on source document number 2. Okay. They came out earlier this year and say, your strategy actually not so great, okay? And how do they do it, okay? They look at, they use these IV phi equal weight. Now, IV phi is the original Melvin Faber's, IB portfolio 5. So that's S&P 500, developed market, commercial real estate, Goldman Sachs commodity index, and a long-term. This is LTR. I think it's Merrill Lynch 7 to 10 year treasury. Okay, so this is the medium-term treasury, roughly the same maturity as BND or AGG. Okay, aggregate bond index, investment grade bond index. Okay. So he looked at, he used the IV phi equal weight. Then he used, IV phi 12 months moving average, which is essentially what Matt Faber is doing. If you are above, you are in that class. If it's below the 12 months moving average, you are out in cash. Okay. Then he used a risk parity 36 months look back period. Looking back last 36 months to calculate the Sharpe ratio and then allocate according to the risk. On the Sharpe parity side, he did two things. One is to look at 36 months look back period. The other one is to look at the 3 months look back period. And then, every month the assets is reallocated according to these ratios. So you can see that we know that using the 12 months moving average as essentially a timing mechanism, the compound annual growth rate is about the same. Standard deviation is reduced. Maximum drawdown has been reduced quite a bit. Sharpe ratio is higher. Sortino ratio is higher. Sortino ratio only look at the negative return. Okay. The risk parity about the same. Standard deviation a bit higher. Drawdown is quite a bit more than the Matt Faber's approach, but less than the equal weight. Sharpe ratio is 0.72. Again, higher than that and lower than the 12 months moving average. The Sharpe parity 36 months look back, 10.9, standard deviation 10%, maximum drawdown 24.5. Sharpe ratio is lower than risk parity. Sortino is lower, is about the same as risk parity. Looking at the 3 months look back period, 11.9%, higher return, higher risk, drawdown is higher, Sharpe ratio is lower, and Sortino is lower. Okay, so obviously there are some difference between what they are doing in terms of what Theo Nakisa is doing. They look at SPY, NASDAQ 100, small cap, developed market, commercial real estate, emerging market, TLT, long-term treasury, and gold, versus Wesley looking at these sort of classical 5 asset class. The other difference is the retro analysis period. Theo and Nakisa only look at around 11 years. So you can say that, oh yeah, they did not cover the internet bubble burst. Okay, so that may be important. The guys in the Alpha Architect, they look back 34 years. Okay, so you can say that, hey, I mean, their approach is certainly a lot more robust. They look at much longer period of time. They look at various strategies. So the takeaway that I would have is that to make Sharpe Parity a truly high-performance allocation strategy of all seasons, it needs to increase the return while reducing standard deviation and drawdown at the same time. So if you can take that basic Sharpe Parity framework, which I think is a very good framework because it allocates more assets to better performing strategies, okay, versus the classical allocation is say, oh, from the 12, I pick up 3 and then allocate 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 to each of them. So I think they do have something to say, yes.
Or Wesley Gray, or the 5 or so ETFs there, most of those did not exist going back to 1980. Did you address already what they used prior to the existence?
They primarily use index.
Okay, index.
Yeah, so the yes, I think the index existed in those time already. Yeah. Okay.
What's the percentage of improvement when you reallocate between the different Sharpe ratio pieces? What is the percentage of gain typically? 1, 2, 5, 20?
Hold your thought. Yes, it will be addressed. Okay. Okay. So my takeaway is that I think I really like the framework, but if we can achieve a bit higher return and reduce a bit risk, well then that will be a wonderful strategy. Okay. So how do I propose to do that? Okay. So my proposal is